and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 5 English lesson on relative adverbs. And before we start with our lesson on relative adverbs, we're going to log into aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts, grade 5, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of relative adverbs. So our chapter is relative adverbs. The subject is English language arts, grade 5, and the lesson that we're going to be focusing on under the chapter of relative adverbs is to use relative adverbs. And we are also doing our tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca. So we're doing our tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca. All right, so relative adverbs, right? A relative adverb introduces a dependent or relative clause that describes a noun. So a relative adverb introduces a dependent clause that describes a noun. And the three relative adverbs, right? And the three relevant adverbs are where, when, and why. So a relative adverb, it introduces a dependent clause, right? That describes a noun. And the three relative adverbs are where, it's when, and it's why. And when it comes to the relative adverb where, right? The relative adverb where is used to describe a place. Where is describing a place. For example, Chicago is the city where Jennifer was born. So where? Chicago. And then the relative adverb when, right? It is used to describe a time. For example, I can't wait for the day when camp starts. So when It describes a time, and an example of when is I can't wait for the day when camp starts. And then the relative why, it is used to give a reason. The relative why is to give a reason. For example, do you know the reason why Ellen um left early? Right? So relative adverbs introduces dependent clauses, right? That describes a noun. And we see that a relative clause or relative adverb or relative adverbs, they are where, when, and why. And the relative adverb where, it describes a place. The relative adverb when describes a time. And the relative adverb why, it basically is used to give a reason. And relative adverbs, right, they connect nouns or they connect pronouns to relative clauses, right, which can be essential or non essential. For example, that's the restaurant in which we live. And that basically tells us the way. It's like where, which one, that one, right? And relative adverbs, if we look at this picture, right? A relative adverb, it says it's an adverb that heads an adjective clause. And remember, it's still asking ourselves the questions where, when, and why. And if we look at the sentence, it says, this place where the animals gather to drink is near. So, this place where the animals gather to drink is near. And relative, we said a relative adverb where, when, and why. It's an adverb that heads an adjective clause, right? For example, the place where the animals gather to drink is near. So, which means that the word this place, so this place, right? It's a noun. And then the next one where it says where the animals gather to drink, it's an adjective clause. So basically, this word where the animals gather to drink, it's a relative adverb. Tells us either when, where, why. and is near. So we say a relative adverb, right? It's an adverb that heads an adjective clause, and there we have an adjective clause where it says where the animals gather to drink. So it basically modifies the place, which is the noun. And we said relative adverbs, right? They either tell us when, where, or why, right? So when, once again, it refers to time and it tells us when it happened. Then where, right, refers to a place and it tells us where it happened. And then why, right, it refers to a reason and it tells us why it happened. So our relative adverbs when, where, and why. When tells us the time, when it happened, where tells us the place where it happened, and why gives us the reason as to why it happened. And if we look at an example, right, it says, I slept where we placed our things. So they slept where we placed our things. So they slept where we placed our things. So they slept where we placed our things. So that word where, once again, it modifies the noun, which is where they slept, right? Actually, slept is a verb. The second one says, but the word where is our relative adverb. So where is our relative adverb? It snowed a year ago when we traveled to Maine. And it snowed a year ago when we traveled to Maine. And that word when that is circled is a relative adverb, right? That tells us when. And it basically tells us the time. It's like telling us when it happened. And Jordan will explain to the class why the answer is correct. And if we look at that word, especially why, then it means that we are the relative adverb why. It tells us basically why it happened. So we said Jordan will explain to the class why the answer is correct. So there we have why. The answer is correct. And since she arrived, her sister have been celebrating. Since she arrived, her sisters have been celebrating. Right? So since she arrived, her sister has been celebrating. All right, so we said that a relative adverb, it introduces a dependent clause. And remember, a dependent clause is not a clause that can stand on its own, right? A dependent clause either needs to be joined by an independent clause in order to complete a sentence or thought. So the three relative adverbs we said is where, it's when, and why. And we said when it comes to the relative adverbs where, when, and why, the adverb where is used to describe a place, right? It will tell us where it is, it describes a place. The relative adverbs when is used to describe a time. And relative adverbs, right? We said it connects a noun or describes a noun, right? And we said a relative adverb, it connects nouns or pronouns to relative clauses. All right. So once again, when we look at the relative adverbs, right, it says that this place where the animals gather to drink is near. And we are doing our tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca. So now we are in our tutorial lesson. So we are now by using relative adverbs. And we said that a relative adverb introduces a dependent or a relative clause to describe a noun. So it introduces a dependent or relative clause. And the three relative adverbs are where, when, and why. And we say the relative adverbs, right? It introduces a dependent clause that describes a noun. And the three relative adverbs are where, when, and why. And we said that the relative adverb where, it's used to describe a place. It's like asking yourself, oh, where is that? And they're like, no, it is there. But this one describes a place. The relative adverb when is used to describe a time. It's like, when are you going? And the relative adverb why, it's like you want to know why. It's like you're going to give a reason, right? So basically, you need to ask yourself questions like where, when, and why, right? And we say the dependent clause, it's not it's a clause that basically needs an independent sentence or clause in order for it to join, right? But an independent clause, or let's say a dependent clause, cannot stand on its own. So a relative adverb, it introduces a dependent or relative clause to describe a noun, which means that there's like a latch on in which this dependent clause then describes the noun, right? Okay, yeah, it says complete the sentence with the correct relative clause or the correct relative adverb where, when, or why. It says, this is the court the tennis tournament is played. So if they are saying this is the court the tennis tournament is played, right? Are they telling us where? Are they telling us when? Or are they telling us why? It says this is the court, right? Like a tennis court. The tournament is played. Do we say this is the court where the tournament is played? Do we say this is the court when the tournament is played? Or do we say this is the court why the tournament is played? All right. So basically, when it comes to the relative clause, the first one, it says, this is the tennis court where the tennis tournament is being played. So where is correct. So well done. Justine lives in a district. Do we say where the schools are well functioning, well funded, sorry, or when the schools are well funded, or why the schools are well funded? So Justine lives in a district. Do we say where the schools are well funded? Or do we say when the schools are well funded, or why the schools are well funded? So Justine lives in a district. Do we say where the schools are well funded? Do we say when the schools are well funded? Or do we say why the schools are well funded? So basically, if we need to ask ourselves where, when, and why, then we can say Justine lives in a district where the schools are well funded. So basically, the only thing that we need to add is where, or when, or why, right? So we said where is correct. All right. And then it says email your representative before Tuesday. The Congress will meet again. So email your representative before Tuesday. Do we say where the Congresses will meet again, or when Congress will meet again? All right. So basically, we said that email your representative before Tuesday. When? So basically, we say when Congress will meet again. So the time, it's like giving time when they will meet, right? All right. Now let's go to our test. All right, so now it says we need to complete the sentence with the correct relative adverb where, when, or why, right? I can't wait for summertime. Do we say when it's warm outside or what it's warm outside. So I can't wait for summertime when it's warm outside or what it's warm outside. You will need to choose between when and what. All right. So it says, I can't wait for summertime when it's warm outside. So when is correct. So well done. When is correct. Email your representative before Tuesday. Do we say when Congress will meet again? Or email your representative before Tuesday what Congress will meet again? All right, so email your representative before Tuesday. Do we say when Congress will meet again or what Congress will meet again? So email your representative before Tuesday when Congress will meet again or what Congress will meet again. Yeah. All right, and if we choose the correct adverb, we will say to when. And when is correct. So well done. My favorite season is fall. So my favorite season is fall. When the leaves change colors, or do we say what the leaves turns or changes colors? So my favorite season is fall. Do we say when the leaves change colors or what the leaves change colors? Because fall, the leaves are changing colors, starts coming orange, brown, before all of the leaves starts falling off during winter times. All right, so when we say my favorite season is fall, then we say when the leaves change colors. So this person's favorite place or the season is fall when the leaves starts changing colors. And when is correct. Well done. The captain went to the harbor. His fleet was waiting. Do we say where his fleet was waiting or what his fleet was waiting? The captain went to the harbor where his fleet was waiting. So we'll say that the captain went to the harbor where his fleet was waiting, or do we say the captain went to the harbor what his fleet was waiting? So we need to choose the correct one. All right, so we said the captain went to the harbor where his fleet was waiting. All right, so it says, is there a reason? Is there a reason? Do we say why or do we say what you don't like lizards? So is there a reason? Do we say why you don't like lizards? Or is there a reason what you don't like lizards? All right, so if we go on to the next one, we'll say that is there a reason why you don't like lizards? So why? All right. So we said why. And why is, well, you said the adverb why is correct. Now we need to complete the sentence with the correct correlative adverb, which is either where, when, or why. All right, so it says, we'll see Sophia tomorrow when she returns from the expedition. So we'll see Sophia tomorrow where or when she returns from the expedition. And it says that we'll see, oh, we already, no, we'll see Sophia tomorrow when she returns from the expedition. Sorry about that. So when is correct. Justin lives in a district, do we say where the schools are well funded? Or Justin lives in a district what the schools are well funded? So you need to choose one of those options either. So we say Justine lives in a district, right? Do we say she lives in a district where the schools are well funded, or she lives in a district when the schools are, what the schools are funded? Where or what? Only where or what? So she lives in a district. Do we say where the schools are well funded or what the schools are well funded? All right, so if we say Justine lives in a district, then we say where the schools are well funded. And well done, where is correct. All right, let's do our last one. Let's find out the reason. Let's find out the reason. Do we say why the microphone isn't working, or do we ask ourselves what the microphone isn't working? So let's find out the reason why the microphone isn't working, or let's find out the reason what the microphone isn't working. So is it why it's not working or what it's not working? All right. So let's find out the reason why the microphone isn't working. Remember, we said that the word why, it basically asks or tells us a reason, right? So why is correct. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on relative adverbs, right? Grade 5. Thank you very much for joining our class, and I really hope you're going to have a good weekend further. Goodbye.